Going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Isles Talk here. My name is Paul Kreischer. I'm going to be your host for this evening. I think I'm going solo here tonight. So I'm going to get everything going here real quick. Thanks for joining me tonight. Should I learn how to type? And yeah, we're going to be going over the Atlantic Division tonight. And, again, from a theme for like a preseason heading into the regular season. Um, nothing's concrete, but at least you guys have an idea of where I'm coming from. And it's to continue the story of where this team's going in terms, the Islanders, where they're going. Um, what place do I think they should be able to finish? And a lot of it's going to determine on the Atlantic Division, believe it or not. So, having said that, I'm almost done here. I am working by myself tonight. Joe had some um, family obligations he had to take care of. Um, oh, Gary is here. I thought Gary was working somewhere else. Yeah, Gary, come on in. Let's see if that'll work. Do 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 do. Gary wants to join. Fine. Let's bring Gary on. Give me one moment. There we go. Okay. Who's this weird looking person? Which one are you referring to? We're all weird here. So, welcome, guys. Gary, come on in whenever you want. Yeah, just send me five. Yeah, I know. Just finishing dinner. Wonderful. So, all right, let's talk Atlantic Division here, folks. Again, there is a method to my madness. Do I think the Islanders are going to make the playoffs? Yes, I do. Was this offseason a little bit of a failure to a degree? Um, but where do I think the Islanders are going to finish? Probably higher than what most of you are going to want to believe. And it's not because the Islanders are going to be that bad. I think the other teams are going to be coming down. And, you know, the Atlantic Division is going to be one of them. So let's go over the Atlantic Division again from a theme standpoint, because we really don't know what's going to happen, uh, you know, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months from now. We're going to get into the Islander news a little bit later on, but I want to jump right in real quick um, to the Atlantic Division because this is going to be quick. Right off the bat, let's go with the Montreal Canadiens. Guys, if there's a theme here, it's an actual rebuild. Um, let's be honest. The Montreal Canadiens haven't been a Stanley Cup contender now for what? Since 93? And Patrick Waugh took Montreal all the way to the cup back then. Um, you can maybe go back to 86, but really the last time Montreal was really, really dominant was 1979. I mean, let's just put that out there. This is going to be like the first big rebuild that Montreal's ever done. So for me, I'm looking at Montreal right now and I'm thinking average offense because they did make some moves, especially at the draft, but their defense, oh, oh, we're talking like fisherman logo style era of defense here for the Montreal Canadiens. It's not going to be pretty. I'm not. I am going to have some kind of sympathy going in for these goaltenders in Montreal, especially with Carey Price no longer being here. I just, yeah, I, sorry Montreal. Go after Connor Bedard. Um, tank this season if you can. Continue this rebuild. Do it the right way. But if there was ever a theme for Montreal, it's rebuild. Let's see where you go from there. Um, you're going to have plenty of cap space. So good luck with Montreal. That's about it. Moving on. The Buffalo Sabres. The Buffalo Sabres, for me, uh, they're going to be fun to watch. They're going to be more fun to watch than Montreal, in my opinion. I think Buffalo is going to surprise a few people, especially towards the second half of the season. Um, I'm going to enjoy watching Kyle Oposo be captain of this team. I think he's earned it. Uh, could he be a trade candidate for any team at the deadline? Maybe. If he has a really good season, maybe. Maybe he'll take another run at the cup. Why not? Other than that, Buffalo for me right now, their offense is just unproven. There's a lot of kids. There's a lot of offense that needs to be untapped. I can't, and this is why I have them down on the bottom as well. Um, their defense again is unproven. I They're going to be fun to watch. I'm not going to lie, they're going to be fun to watch. I could probably put the Buffalo Sabres somewhere in that '09, 10 Islanders version, maybe. They after they drafted John Tavares, they had an kind of a season. You just didn't know what you were going to get. That's where the Buffalo Sabres are for me. Young, fun to watch. Are they going to be able to go anywhere? Yeah, Robin, I'm going to go along with this one. I like this a lot. I expect Buffalo to be streaky, hot and cold. I agree. Um, Nothing against Buffalo. I think they're getting everything correct. They're doing everything well for what you should be doing in a rebuild. No doubt about it. But are they going to make a run at the playoffs? I don't think so. So I like that. We're gonna get to the Islanders in a minute with the whole scoring and everything else. I promise we're gonna get in there. But yeah, Kirk Muller, Montreal. All right, fair play, Matthew. Fair play. I know. That was the offense way back when. So, all right, now we got rid of the two obvious teams, Montreal and Buffalo, out of the Atlantic Division. Now, this is where things get a little interesting right now, and I'm going to bring up the Ottawa Senators. The Ottawa Senators have a lot to prove right now. This is one of those teams I am truly excited to watch this coming season. I expect them to do a lot of damage, especially if teams get injured in the Atlantic. I am also expecting Ottawa to get off to a very good start at the beginning of the season, and they kind of remind me of the New Jersey Devils. Good young team. Can they make it through an entire 82 game season? Right now, I'm going to say no. I like their offense for what it is. It's young. Their defense is good. I'm going to say average. Their goaltending is better, but are they going to be able to top Toronto? No. Are they going to be able to top Tampa or Florida? No. Are they going to be able to beat Boston? I don't think so. The issue is here, and we'll get to Boston in a minute. Boston has to lose a lot in order for Ottawa to gain ground. And there's also another team in the Atlantic that we're going to talk about as well. The Ottawa Senators are going to be more fun to watch than Buffalo. The Ottawa Senators are going to be in a lot of close games this season. I definitely see Ottawa stringing up quite a few wins. This is going to be a refreshing team to see. They could also remind me of the Anaheim Ducks, where again, they get off to a very good start. And then, games 60, 70, 80, I think it just may wear on them. And as the season goes on, they may fade a little bit. But the Ottawa Senators look really good. I'm going to say a theme for them is poised. I think they're looking to make a statement. I think they're going to make a statement. I think they're going to show that they've at least arrived to a degree. But I don't know if Ottawa has enough to be playoff bound. Having said that, I don't think Ottawa's done making any kind of trades. I don't think I think Ottawa will pull the trigger if it improves the club, and they have room to improve. But for right now, Ottawa is on my radar. I will be watching, but I don't think they'll be able to cut it into the playoffs just yet. Maybe by next year, we'll see how things go. So let's go with Robin here. Is Buffalo or Ottawa going to be a 500 team? That's going to be the question mark. That's where I'm going to go. I'm going to say no with Buffalo. I'm going to say no with Buffalo. I think Ottawa can cut it close. I think Ottawa. I like Ottawa's goaltending. There he is. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Paul, how are you, buddy?
All right. I like Ottawa's goaltending in terms of the Eastern Conference right now over Columbus, over New Jersey, over Buffalo. I think their goaltending, if they stay healthy, I think they're going to make a nice little run for that 500 mark, if not better. The question that concerns me is their defense. If is their defense going to leave their goaltenders out to dry? That's going to be the big question for me. Um, in terms of offense, I think they're going to be streaky. They're going to be hot, and they're going to be cold at times. And once they finally find that consistency, I think at some point Ottawa is going to be a dominant force later on. But if you're going to ask me right now who has a better chance of playing 500, I'm going to go Ottawa right now and not Buffalo.
I agree on that one too.
Yeah,
I like the way the offense is making up, and like you said, it's gonna be good, but there's gonna be those nights where they're gonna lose 9-0. Unfortunately, they're that type of team. They're even you saw peaks of it, bits and pieces of it at the end of last year that they had some signs of in the right direction. So I like the way they're going. I think I heard you say before about Buffalo, and I totally agree. With that assessment, but I just think Ottawa is going to be, I think, a little more faster, a little more nimble. But some of Buffalo's guys with power, of course, leading the way.
yeah.
They're definitely a force. And like I said, I love it, and I love that Kyle's the captain.
You love what?
That Kyle's the captain.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, and I agree with Matthew here. They're going to score some goals. I think the Ottawa Senators this year, they're going to remind me of the 2017-18 Islanders when Doug Weight was their coach. They're going to score a lot of goals, but they're also going to give up a lot of goals depending on their defense and the healthiness, especially the healthiness of their goaltending. If they can stay healthy throughout the year, all right, I may move them up a little bit. But I think for right now, I'm going to go Ottawa has a better chance of getting to that 500 mark than I do Buffalo.
Cam's the X factor there. If he's got a Cam Talbot season like he had in Minnesota in the beginning of the year, who knows what this team can do.
And I agree with Brian right here. Owen Powers is going to be good. He's going to be good for a very long time. Buffalo fans, don't put any pressure on this kid. Just go to the games, enjoy, let him play. Absolutely. So, that's my take so far with the Montreal Canadiens, the Buffalo Sabres, the Ottawa Senators. Just real quick, Gary, I basically said for the Canadiens, it's rebuild.
Oh, I heard you
continue
before.
To rebuild. Yeah, continue to rebuild. Like honestly, this team hasn't been like really Stanley Cup contenders since like 79. They did well in 86. They had a great run in 93. I would contest that if Pittsburgh actually beat the Islanders in 93, Pittsburgh would beat Montreal. So
no question.
Yeah.
No question.
Good on that. Moving forward here, guys. Oop, I forgot one. This is the one I really want to talk about here, boys and girls. I really like the Detroit Red Wings. Steve Yzerman will probably tell you they're still about 2 or 3 years away. And I'll say this right now, Islander fans, for those of you who do not know your history, that is very Jimmy Devellano-like, okay? Jimmy Devellano was the assistant GM to Bill Torrey during the dynasty years until Devellano took on the job of GM for the Detroit Red Wings. Devellano said the exact same thing, and it's exactly what Steve Yzerman is doing. That's where he learned it from. He might be right, being 2 or 3 years away, but at the same time, this is a team, Gary, that I think can get over 90 points. And if something happens injury wise to anyone in the Atlantic or even in the Metro, any of those wild card teams in the Metro, they get plagued. Detroit's got a shot at these, they got a shot at the wild card here.
Yeah, they do. I'm just was looking at the depth chart, and again, I forgot about the fact that not only they got Andrew Kopp, but they got David Perron and Kubalik as well. So they've got three. They end up now with three solid lines, and goaltending was a problem. Nedeljkovic had a bad year. Grice didn't have that great of a year. They bring in Ville Husso from St.
Oh,
Louis, who had a nice job
yes.
backing up Binnington and actually
Yes.
took a step forward. So that I think they've improved in just about every facet. And they got Chara too. I keep forgetting about all the guys they picked up. Again,
Yeah.
that's that's Stevie Eisenman again learned from the best, and he's building it slowly. He's not doing too much. He's getting cogs together and hoping that some of the young guys that he's got a great bunch of young talent start to develop. And if they they do that, that's a typical Detroit Red Wing prescription for success.
The theme for me when it comes to Detroit is rise up, take advantage, um, grab it. Like there are teams right now that are literally in the middle who are much older than the Islanders. They're on the verge of collapsing. This is Detroit's time to actually get in early. They kind of remind me of the 2015, no, the 16-17 Toronto Maple Leafs. Bunch of young kids getting together. All of a sudden, they go on a terrific run, led by Austin Matthews, and they just get into the playoffs, only to be swept by the Washington Capitals. That is something I could see Detroit doing, having a real good start, fighting their way in, maybe losing in the first round to whoever they play, but the experience that they gain will be invaluable, and you can't count them out from here on out.
No, I totally agree with that. They have the talent. It's there. I mean, and you could say that the coach, getting rid of Blashill after 7 years and bringing Lalonde in, but again, Lalonde is a Tampa Bay disciple that was with Yzerman, so he knows what Stevie's going to expect. So, it's. I think that's, potentially could be another good thing.
Yeah. Now, I'm not disagreeing here with the fans who are commenting on Detroit. Detroit may not be good enough because, to their credit, the average, the Detroit's offense as of right now, if I'm looking at the numbers correctly, is pretty much average. Okay. Their defense right now is pretty much, well, not average. It's a little bit below average. But again, these guys have not played together. And Yzerman's not really putting pressure on these kids to make it to the playoffs yet. Yes, these kids are going to learn from the veterans, but it's the other teams that have been in the playoffs for so long that are already starting off with injuries. If teams like Ottawa, teams like Detroit get off to really good starts, and these teams that are already injured are having a tough time gaining track throughout the season, you may see a bunch of trades just to, grab a few picks this year. And a lot of these teams that were in the playoffs, they could pull off and Islanders, okay, we're going to miss the playoffs this year, retool a little bit, and then come back. That's how I think teams like Ottawa and Detroit, or even the Devils to a certain degree, or Columbus have a shot at making the playoffs. If it's these upper teams that decide, okay, maybe not this year, but we'll be back next year, I think they may pull a Lou. But that's the only way I see the Atlantic Division, these bottom teams making the playoffs, is if some of these upper teams don't do well.
Again, most things that I've seen, I don't know if you mentioned it earlier, but most in the Eastern Conference are predicting 5-3. 5 in the Metro, 3 in the Atlantic. So, if you're not at that level, as you said, if Ottawa, Detroit, or Buffalo can go on, say, 11-4 run in that first 15 games to start the year, that could be enough potentially to hold on. With teams like Boston that you're going to talk about later that are going to be struggling with injuries and things like that. So, with this kind of a setup and the way the conference is looking right now, you
Right.
really you really need to have an unbelievably successful October and early November to do something. As Islander fans, we know what October and November looked like for us, and look what happened. So it's a definitely a common factor. Everybody says, oh, you're only up, you miss by 1 or 2 points, but you know what? That start, if it's positive, if it's good, if you're multiple games over 500, is going to be a major momentum factor in your success.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And that's why some of these other teams had to improve this year, because there's that chance that some of these older teams are going to be ridiculed with injuries all season long. So I can't wait to see, and I'm going to bring this up again, Robin, with all the great comments tonight. There was a large gap. I don't think there's going to be a large gap this year, folks.
No,
This is not going to be a beer league standings this year. It's not going to happen.
the
Ottawa
top
will.
teams have suffered. The top teams are going to suffer a little bit. The bottom teams are moving up. It's going to be parity again. And it's going to you basically looked at last year and you knew what 8 teams you had with 6 weeks left in the season. At this point, my guess is you're going to have 11 teams with a good shot with 6 points with 6 weeks left in the season. So that's something to look forward to.
Yeah. And Morty Cider, very good, Randy. I agree. I'm expecting more out of him this year, and not expecting he has to do this or he has to do that. No, I'm just going to enjoy watching him play and see what else he can do with the puck. So, I'm very curious and eager to see what the Detroit Red Wings do. If there's one dark horse team that I always pick, Detroit is it, because I think Detroit may shock a few people, may not shock a few of us who have been watching Detroit very, very, very closely. So,
For sure.
Yeah, Detroit for me is going to be the one I'm looking for over in the Atlantic. So, another team now. We're going to look short term, and then we're going to determine whether or not they're really going to stick around. The Boston Bruins, ladies and gentlemen. This is your middle child of the Atlantic Division. They may still be better than some of the other teams we've discussed. Are they better than the teams above them? I don't know. And there's a lot of injuries going on with Boston right now. And if everyone remembers, Boston was the 8th place team in the conference. And I'll say this now, with the injuries that they've all sustained, I would actually move the Islanders ahead of Boston. Currently. I think so. I'm going to move the Islanders up a little further.
Right. You're starting the year without Bergeron. You're starting the year without Marchand. Both of them are probably, I know Marchand, I think definitely they said is not going to probably be back until the first of the year. So
David Krejci has not played in the NHL for a full season now. We don't know how this is going to, impact Pasternak. If things do not go well in Beantown, you can see this. This is one team that I can see imploding in front of everybody. And, get ready for Boston to go nuts if Pasternak does not re-sign.
Again, new coach too.
Armstrong, right?
No, Montgomery.
Montgomery,
former coach of Dallas.
Yes, thank you. Yep. What's going on with Pasternak? Very simple. Pasternak doesn't know where Boston's going. They don't, Boston doesn't have a direction right now. Boston is playing the old Detroit Red Wings. Let's just get into the playoffs and see what happens, which is not good because Boston is definitely one of the older teams in this league. I think they're top 2 now. I think them and Washington and Pittsburgh are right up there. They're 31 on the average age list. So they're not doing very well.
The fortunate part for Boston last year is they got, with Rask being hurt and now no longer in the league, they had great contributions from both Swayman and Olmark. And I think with the lack of lack of offense in that, they're going to have to rely more on your goaltending now to do things, and that's going to be a tremendous litmus test. And you forget McAvoy's out to start the year too.
That's right. Yeah, Boston is a hot mess, folks. Boston is a hot mess, and there's something. This is something I'll say right now. If there's a team flirting with 500, the NHL 500 record, any team who has dropped 7 games in a row, they don't make the playoffs. That happens every year. It's a stat I normally don't break out. It happened to the Islanders last year.
Mm-hmm.
It happens to every team. It happens to at least one team every year, sometimes 2. If there's a team that loses 7 in a row, they miss the playoffs. Boston, for me, is that team that could absolutely lose 7 in a row if things go horribly. So, Rush, you're not far off. There could be a fire sale. It's time. Who are you going to build the team around? Yes, you can build around Pasternak if he decides to stay. Yes, you can build a team around McAvoy, but who's your center? Yeah, you got a couple of good prospects in Providence.
And another big issue that I was just reading in one of the things here. Boston has always had a reputation over the past decade of having a very, very strong talent pool. The AHL in Providence has always been one of the best in the league, in the entire league. They're depleted right now.
Yeah,
so if they have to deal with more injury situations, it's going to be a big, big problem for Boston. And Boston has not had to deal. They've always had guys that were able to come in and step up from Providence and do the job. Again, Swayman was one from last year. He was incredible during the lockout, during the COVID year in Providence. He was tremendous, and he got the chance to come up, this past season, and did quite well. But but there's nobody there. It's depleted.
No.
And that's add all of that on, that tells you right there. They're for the first time in a long time, Boston's really gonna have to struggle. And fight and claw to make a playoff spot. And I'm not sure. If I look at it right now, I'd say no.
Right. Yeah. And Washington, for those of you who missed last week's show, the Capitals are in the same spot.
Yep.
That team will go as far as Alex Ovechkin. I think the Boston Bruins will go as far as David Pasternak wants to take him. So we'll see from there. And this is going to be a perfect segue. Where is he? Where are you, Cutler? I saw you. There we go. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, to discuss the Toronto Maple Leafs. I know Randy is a big fan of the Leafs. I will try to be nice. I will say this about the Leafs. If there is ever a theme, and again, I'm not necessarily showing my age, but I am a DJ. A lot of weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, a lot of anniversary parties. If there is a theme that is still in my head for the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's the song "This Is It" by Kenny Loggins. Make no mistake where you are. This is it.
This is it.
This is it, folks. Okay? This is it. If you don't know the song, Google it. Look up the lyrics. For those of you who are not Leafs fans, you're going to laugh your butt off. For those of you who are Leafs fans, okay, you get it. Okay? This is it by Kenny Loggins. Folks, this might be it for the Toronto Maple Leafs. This probably is the year. Cutler brings up a good point here in the question. Will the Leafs win a first-round series? They have to. They absolutely have to, because I'll say this now. Tampa is still around, but if Florida doesn't get it right this year, they're going to get it right next year. And I'll get into the Panthers in a little bit. The Leafs have an opportunity to beat not necessarily an aging, but a really tired Tampa Bay team who has played a lot of playoffs hockey, a lot. And they're going up against a newer team in Florida, a little bit of a revamped team, but they all have some kind of playoff experience. These Maple Leafs have been around, like I said, since 2016 now, 2017. We're working on year 5 and 6 here, folks. 6 years. It's time for the Maple Leafs to actually do something. So, will they win? We'll get back to that.
Yeah.
They have a chance to. I'll say this.
That's for sure. They do.
They have a chance, but they have to make it happen this year. Forget about Kyle Dubas and losing his job. That's just, I don't buy that. I get it, but you go 7 games against Tampa Bay or you go 7 games against Florida. Come on. But again, if there's a theme for the Toronto Maple Leafs, this is it by Kenny Loggins. Look it up, then start laughing. Gary, give me your thoughts real quick on the Leafs.
I'm totally on board. They've had so many opportunities, and part of me wants to feel bad for the fans, but
hold on for one moment here. I'm gonna cut you off just for a moment. Hall & Oates goal song. Only if they get past the first round should it be "You Make My Dreams Come True." That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. That they got to get past the first round. Go ahead, Gary.
No, just that they made a couple of decent pickups. Again, a big question is your goaltending. Matt Murray, we all know the story of him. This is his third team now after his run in Pittsburgh. Lots expected of him. Samsonov couldn't really get the chance to do anything in Washington, so he's getting another opportunity. So you have 2 decent goaltenders, but again, they're not like Boston or like the other teams where they got to start out heavy. They'll be consistent all the way through, but it's just like baseball season. What have you done for me in October? You can make the playoffs all you want, but if you don't do anything, what good is this team going to be? Will they, if the same thing happens next year, will they be broken up? I don't think so, but something's going to have to change. They're always listed in the top 5 in cup odds. They're going to be again this year. Austin's going to be Austin. Marner's going to be Marner. We don't talk about that other guy that's a second line center, but but they're without looking at the past performances, they're a deep team, and they should do more than they are. Yeah. And I don't know what necessarily you can expect them, to do. They were first in the power play, so their special teams are always good. They always have great things, but what happens? Does the air get a little thicker in Ontario once April comes along? I don't know, but they have to do something. They got to maybe do like Spaceballs and bring Perrier, into the arena.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. So, all right, Leafs fans, this is it. Get it together. Let's see what happens. Good luck. Moving on to my next team here, the Tampa Bay Lightning. I said this last year. I will say it again. I think the Lightning are just pacing themselves now. And that's going to be my theme for the Lightning, pace. They don't have to do anything in the regular season except make the playoffs.
Yep.
Sergachev is going to replace
McDonough.
Oh, McDonough. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't think Tampa Bay is going to miss a beat. They're going to have a bunch of young prospects coming up anyway because they've still been drafting very well.
Yeah, they've got a deep program.
They still have a deep program. For me, Tampa Bay just needs to get into the playoffs, and if Vasilevsky gets hot whenever he wants to get hot, they're gonna blow by everybody when they want to. And again, John Cooper's going to do his thing. The players are going to respond. For me, I wouldn't even care if Tampa Bay got into fourth place in the division. I don't think it's going to matter. For me, these are the Islanders. I'm going to say maybe of 84, 83, 84, because again, back in 83, the Islanders were not expected to beat the Edmonton Oilers. They did it anyway. And then in 84, they eventually lost to the Edmonton Oilers. And then 85 comes around and it was just father time catching up along with injuries. I don't think Tampa Bay's at that point yet. Um Again, a lot of playoff games, a lot of time in the summer playing hockey. So we'll see what happens. But for me, Tampa Bay doesn't have to do anything probably until February anyway, where they can turn on the heat and then actually start playing because they know they can make a long playoff run.
Tampa Bay is always as good as Vasilevsky takes them, as you said. And the thing you keep forgetting, he's only 28 years old. He's still got a good long career left. And look what's on that resume already. I mean, it's just, he's incredible. It's just, it just boggles the mind how successful he's been, so young and so quickly. And as you said, if he's on fire, starting in March, look out, because all bets are off with this team because they can just rely on whatever.
Right.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, go ahead. And I agree with Cutler. I agree with Robin. They have lost some quality players. They really have. But they should be able to, throughout the season, make a couple of trades, make a couple of under the radar moves, build up their depth, and get ready for another playoff run. Now, let's have this conversation again next year. And I'm going to agree 100% fully with Cutler and Robin and saying, okay, I don't see Tampa making another run after this. I still think this is like their last year to make a legitimate run at the Stanley Cup. Because, like I said, for next season, I think Florida's going to get it all together. I still think the Avalanche are still going to be up there. Who knows who comes up in the Atlantic? It could be Detroit making much bigger noise. Ottawa could be coming up. I think next year it's going to be much more difficult for Tampa Bay to do anything. So I'm with you guys. They have lost quality players, but I think this year they could survive. I hope they survive because the Battle of Florida has been nothing but fun to watch, especially in the playoffs. And again, I will go with Brush here as well. Tampa is soon to be in cap hell to a degree. You got to remember the cap is supposed to go up. What are we looking at? Lower 90s in another year or two at most. So all those teams in cap hell, short term, yes, long term, no.
Yep.
Right. And I agree with Randy here. They didn't lose anyone who can't be replaced for now. Next year, we'll see what happens. So never doubt the Tampa Bay Lightning for right now. All right. So the final team in this Atlantic Division, the Florida Panthers. This is a team that I agree with a lot of the comments on here. They're going to regress, and that's a good thing because everyone knows once you win the President's Trophy, you normally don't do well in the playoffs. And they went in with Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay just smacked them back to reality. I think the Panthers learned from this. Most of them did. The Panthers definitely overhauled their team. Does it make them better? I don't think so. I don't think you're going to get as high as a point total. But again, that's also going to be due to some of these teams who have improved. And that does include Buffalo. Buffalo has improved a little bit. Ottawa certainly has improved. Detroit has improved. So I'm not expecting those big numbers out of Florida out of the entire state than we did last year. So I think Florida is going to rediscover who they are. I don't think they're going to pace themselves, but they've got something to prove that, last year was not a fluke. which is why I think right now, if they start doing a lot of losing, if they get into their own heads, that's an opportunity for Toronto to step in and possibly make some noise. Otherwise, Tampa could take this entire division again in the playoffs. So, Gary, give me your thoughts on Florida.
Yeah, just again looking at my books again because I really haven't done a lot of homework in the last week or so. You're
Yeah.
starting your season without Duclair. He's
Yep.
out for a while. I mean, they've made some moves, right? Like you said, I don't think they'll be as strong of a team as they were. I think there's two X factors to me with Florida. Number one, you've got a stable head coach in Paul Maurice. I think he's I think now the coach with the most wins without a Stanley Cup. So
Yes.
he's got something to play for.
Yep.
I think it's a more solid presence behind the net. From what I heard, kind of similar to Barry. I think he lost the room with his team in Winnipeg, and he knew the handwriting was on the wall and said, "I'm getting out," which was smart. Now he comes back fresh. That's one. Number two, I didn't really think so until I did some research and stuff. But Bobrovsky had his best year in Florida last year. 39 wins, decent goals against average. Not the greatest of save percentages when you think of some of the other guys like Shesterkin and Sorokin and much, but
Right.
he had a solid year. But he's aging, and you always worry about goaltenders. The slope on them can go really fast, and that's what worries me. You got Spencer Knight, who you drafted 3 years ago. Your ace for the future, 21 years old, didn't have that great of a year there, but I think it's a big chance for him because this is a kid that we all saw in junior hockey is tremendous. He's got great numbers. He's got great vision. He's got quickness side to side, almost as cat-like as Sorokin can be. But his Achilles heel is he sometimes gets a little lost.
Yep.
And that's what this is a situation for him that he really can come and step up because Bobrovsky's not, I'm not saying he's not long for the league, but his days are dwindling. And this is your chance to step up. And I know Maurice has a tendency to keep a goaltender on too long, ask Connor Hellebuck in Winnipeg that answer. But if he gets the opportunity and steps up and has some great games to start the year, it's going to be a fun, tough decision for Maurice every night, and that to me is big because I think points wise, I don't think they're going to be that far off because you got Matthew Tkachuk in. You
Right.
lost a lot with Huberdeau, but it's not a total loss with Tkachuk in. But I think defensively, that's going to be the one question that could make them be a number one team again this year. And that's what kind of concerns me a little bit.
So, all right. Robin, I don't laugh at that comment. I predict a New York East final, not a Florida final. I have been, and Gary knows this, I have been begging for the Rangers and Islanders to meet, even in a Metro Division final. Give me a Metro Division final. Give me that. Give the NHL that. Give New York that. Okay? A lot of fans are begging the Mets and the Yankees to get together in the World Series.
Yeah, because the only way you're going to get a New York East final is if one of the teams crosses over.
Right.
And you really don't want that.
No, you don't.
No. You'd rather have it as a Metro final.
No. I want Shesterkin against Sorokin. I want Barzell against Zibanejad. I want Fox against Dobson. I want all of that. I want it all. I've been wanting it now for years. I've been hoping that both teams step up like this, and we may get it. We may get it this year, and if we do, finally,
I'm going to have to take more heart medication.
Yeah. Yep. And now, having said that, Here's my Eastern Conference preview. And again, this is more of a should, not will, because it is still September. It's the first day of fall and whatnot. I have four different categories for each of these teams. Basically, the playoffs, these are teams that, for me, on paper, they look solid. They're the safe bet. These are the teams that usually make it to the playoffs unless some kind of a disaster happens. Okay. My second category are my bubble teams. These are the teams that have big question marks, but if they can fill in those question marks, they should make the playoffs. Okay. And then I have my sophomore class. Now, the sophomore is very much like in high school. Okay. Sophomores are just there. They're not freshmen. They're not juniors. They're not going anywhere. They're just there. They're there to just make some kind of noise, disrupt. They try to be relevant. Okay. But they're just there. And then finally, I have my lottery section. Now, these are teams that I don't feel will be a lottery team per se, but these are the teams that I feel that are least likely to make the playoffs. So, starting from the bottom, working our way up to the top, my lottery teams. And again, this was done about 2 weeks ago. I did this before any announcements, before any injuries were named. I always try to do this before training camp. My lottery teams, there's only two: Philadelphia and Montreal. I think that's pretty safe to say. And with Philadelphia coming out with a laundry list of injured players,
Yeah.
that kind of makes sense.
Welcome back, John
Montreal,
Tortorella.
yeah, Montreal is already injured as well.
Yeah.
Losing Carey Price, I'm sorry, Montreal. This is why I said go after Connor Bedard. Um, I don't see Montreal doing it. I don't see Philadelphia doing it. So those are my lottery teams. Those are the two teams that are least likeliest to make the playoffs. My sophomores. There's usually four in this category. The Buffalo Sabres, who I said are going to be a fun team to watch. I have the New Jersey Devils as a sophomore team. I think they're going to be better than last year, but right now their goaltending does nothing for me.
Nope.
And again, they're unproven. They have to stay healthy. So for now, there's not enough in there for me to bump them up. So they're going to be my sophomore team. The Columbus Blue Jackets are in the same boat as the New Jersey Devils. Their goaltending is okay. Their defense is a little shaky. I don't know where they're going to get their offense from yet. We'll see what happens. Columbus certainly has something to prove, but it's just not enough right now in the beginning of September for me to put them in a playoff spot. Another sophomore, but with a chance to really improve, the Ottawa Senators. I'm really going to enjoy watching Ottawa play this year.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to enjoy them, but their defense, their goaltending, can they stay healthy? Can they all gel together? Like, they just haven't played together. Those questions are going to be answered very, very quickly. So for now, I don't think Ottawa's good enough to take out Detroit or the other teams up top. So they're going to be right there, but I don't think they're going to be as bad as, Montreal. And I think they're going to give Buffalo a good run for their money as well. So those are my sophomores. Those are my four sophomores. Now,
Right. Just repeat
these
that
four:
again. Jersey, Ottawa,
Jersey,
Columbus,
Ottawa, and Buffalo.
and Buffalo. Okay.
Those are my
Okay.
sophomores. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, these are my bubble teams. On paper, they look good. On paper, they look good. But there's a couple of holes in here that I can't put them as a playoff team because they're just not safe for me to do it. My bubble teams, and these are usually 9 through 12, in the conference. It doesn't matter what order. Detroit's down on the bottom here as a bubble team. Are they going to be good? Yes. Do they need to make improvements throughout the season to get into the playoffs? Probably.
Yes.
With that said, if things go right all season long, Could Detroit make the playoffs? Yes. Do they have enough for me to put them in right now? No. The Boston Bruins. The Boston Bruins, as we just discussed, these injuries right off the bat. Who is showing up for the Boston Bruins? Is it going to be David Pastrnak taking this team on his shoulders and carrying this team until everyone gets healthy? We don't know.
And how much of a
So
system change, to me, how much of a system change Montgomery does with this team will also be a
exactly.
factor.
For me, there's just too many question marks for me
Mhm.
to put Washington into a safe playoff spot. My next team is the other obvious one coming out of the Metro, and that's the Washington Capitals. The Capitals have the same issues as the Boston Bruins with a ton of injuries, a bunch
Age.
of players coming together, and it's going to be brand new goaltending as well. Alex Ovechkin has to carry this team on his shoulders. And as I have more faith in Ovechkin at the moment than I do Pasternak, but that's a lot to carry. Even
And
for
again,
Ovechkin,
as
that's a
great
lot
as
to
Alex
carry.
is, he's 38 years old. I think 38, 37. You
Exactly.
know, it's a lot more pressure than you can expect from anybody.
Yeah.
At this
And
point.
for right now, those are question marks that are too big for me to put Washington in that playoff spot for now. My fourth and final bubble team. I wish I could say I was doing this as an Islander fan, but I can't. It's the New York Rangers. The New York Rangers right now are my bubble team, and I'll tell you why. Shesterkin does not concern me. Yarrow Halak concerns me as a backup goaltender in
Mm-hmm.
this division in the Eastern Conference. If Georgiev, even if Georgiev was back with the Rangers, I would probably put them in a playoff spot over the Islanders. I can't do that with Yarrow Halak.
No.
I will take Varlamov over Yarrow Halak any day of the week at this point. And for me, I know a lot of people have the Rangers, their young kids are going to improve because they did really well in the playoffs, that one line, yada, yada, yada. Okay, I see that. But then you have Larry Brooks from the Post basically preaching the same thing I was preaching it in the Metro preview. Where's the offense coming from? I don't see it. And everyone's telling me, some of them are telling me the kids are going to make up for it. You better hope so. Because now you're asking the kids to step up majorly. And that's a lot of pressure in New York. And that's including Sisurkin. Because if the offense does not kick in, and let's say they go streaky, let's say they go the Ottawa Senators, let's say they go the Buffalo Sabres, and that offense gets streaky, you're begging Sisurkin to have another Vezina season under his belt. And having doing that, you have the risk of the Rangers getting burnout by like January.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I applaud the Islanders doing over the Rangers. The Islanders are still letting the older guys play, letting the younger guys mature and grow into their game, whereas the not Ranger fans, excuse me, sorry guys. The Rangers are basically throwing the kids into the fire and say, "Here you go,
Do it.
do it." And Thomas, I'm going to agree here. If Shesterkin gets hurt, it's over. Okay, if Sorokin gets hurt, okay, we got Varlamov. It's a fighting chance somewhere. But everyone in New York is going to be like, if Shesterkin gets hurt, this season's over.
Oh, you don't think Louis Domingue is going to step up big time? Just get him some spicy pork or whatever, and he'll be okay.
So the Rangers for me right now, could all of this be answered? Yes, they can. A lot of this stuff can be answered once the season starts. But for me, the Rangers right now are a bubble team. They got to show everybody that these kids are ready. So good luck, kids. Now these are the teams. These are 6 teams that on paper are safe bets to make it to the playoffs. And some of these are, Captain Obvious ones. Tampa Bay Lightning, Florida Panthers, Toronto Maple Leafs. These three teams in their own divisions should make the playoffs. And they don't have to finish 1, 2, and 3. They can finish 1 through 8 anywhere in the conference. That's fine. For me in the Metro, it's Pittsburgh, it's Carolina, and it's the Islanders. For me right now, the Islanders don't have the holes, the bigger holes that some of these other teams have. And I know everyone's going to come back at me, well, where's the offense? That's going to be decided by Lane Lambert, guys.
Mm-hmm.
We said this last week. Lane Lambert, if he has any kind of a mix between Doug Weight and Barry Trotz, this team can still score 256 goals, to which Gary said that's just one more goal per player. That's all you're asking them to do.
Yep.
It's very doable, especially if this younger defense can carry the puck up the ice. So we're going to see what happens there. That's my Eastern Conference preview, folks. There's just a lot of question marks with teams who have been in the playoffs before. There are some bottom teams who have improved, but not enough yet. And the Islanders, for me, could they finish third in this Metro? They could. Where do I see them finishing? I couldn't tell you. For me, it kind of reminds me of Tampa Bay. If the Islanders get into the playoffs and they're healthy, I think anything goes. I do. I agree with this. Pulock has to produce, but Pulock also has to stay healthy. I agree with that. Pulock stays healthy, this is a completely different season because now you got a healthy Ryan Pulock, you got a healthy Noah Dobson. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody watch out. Okay. The Islanders defense will challenge for first. That's a possibility. But again, I do agree with some of the fans that offense, a little more offense is needed. I don't doubt that. I would like to see 3-1, 4-2. I like to see a 2-goal spread, not because of the empty net goals. I like this. I think the Isles finished ninth in the conference again. I'm all right with that. I agree with that assessment because that can still happen. It can. I don't think the Islanders are going to finish no less than ninth. Again, unless injuries occur, the Islanders should finish no worse than ninth. But again, we'll see where the offense takes us. I still think the Islanders can score 250 plus goals. But again, as I said last week in the show, as a team, if the Islanders give up less than 217 goals, they've made it to the playoffs every year. Every year for the last 49 years. 217 goals or less, they make the playoffs. So, again, I agreed with the fans with a little more scoring, but I also agree with Lou in the goal differential. So, again, no one's wrong here. I like the opinions. Gary, your thoughts?
We've been saying it all along. It's just, from what I've heard already out of camp, again, they're saying the right things, but they like Lane so far. I think, I think a change of philosophy is going to be good for these guys. And, I think Lane knows that they've got to be a little bit of a hybrid team than they've been. They've got, like you said, getting that, a half to 3/4 of a goal average per player up, on the forwards, I think is gonna make the difference. And as I said 2 weeks ago, it's the road not, unfortunately, we're looking at that poem about the road not taken. And
right.
We were all comfortable with this team last year when the season started. We were all happy. This team's got a shot for the cup. This team's got a shot for the cup. Experts predicted them for the cup. It's the same team, guys, same makeup, but maybe a different kind of a philosophy involved. And granted, it's quotes, but Barzy seems to be jumping at the bit, and I love it. I love that he's talking. It's not swagger, but it's that nice confidence that he's got already. And if that translates the way I hope it translates, then
Yeah.
we're going to be fine. We're going to be
We're going to
just fine.
segue. We're going to segue from what you just said into what David is asking right here. Does Barzell sign an extension before the season starts? Lots of chatter today that it's close. I hope he does. I hope he
Yeah.
does. I'll go a step further, David. I can't see a contract no less than 9. I'm going to go 9.5. We'll call it an 8-year deal. I'm sure the numbers will work out all by itself. I'm sure there'll be signing bonuses or whatever to keep that cap low. I'm pretty sure that Matthew Barzell is going to be an Islander here long term. And he even said, I don't know, I think he said it to the general media. If he ever becomes in upper management, he's learning everything from Lou because he wants to be someone like Lou. The way Lou is treating the players, the way he handles the contracts. He said he's all for it. And I'm paraphrasing that. I ruined the quote, but Matthew Barzell is literally taking notes on how Lou Lamoriello runs a team. So for me, I'm not worried about Matt Barzell at all. The Islanders are going to give him, I don't want to say a blank check, but I think Barzell's right. I think he's going to get a fair deal because he's realized that Nathan MacKinnon took a deal. Well, the Colorado Avalanche took a deal from Nathan MacKinnon, let's be honest, because he was worth more than that. And Nathan MacKinnon was rewarded with a Stanley Cup. Matthew Barzell is not going to kill the cap. So that way he doesn't get a Stanley Cup. Matthew Barzell is going to work with the Islanders on a fair contract, and I think they're going to go from there. Because in a couple of years, some of these contracts that, from Bailey and Varlamov, they're not going to be here anymore. So the Islanders will be able to afford Matthew Barzell in that respect anyway. But yeah, I don't think anyone should be worried about Matthew Barzell not re-signing with this team. I think it's going to be close. It could be done by the camp, but for me, as long as he signs. Okay, good. David agrees with me. 8 times 9 is fair. I'll even go 9.5. 9.5 if you have to. But again, it's UBS Arena. The Islanders made $30 million last year. When was the last time the Islanders made $30 million? Never.
The last time the Islanders made 3.
Yeah. Never.
Yeah.
Never. Folks, let's put that into perspective. The Islanders just made $30 million last year. Okay. Imagine if the Rangers become tenants for a year. Don't worry about the money. The money's going to be there. Matthew Barzell will be paid. Thoughts on Lou not letting Wild attend camp? You know what? I don't know exactly why. Color, in all honesty, I haven't asked. I am a little surprised, but I don't know if it's because of the team concept or if it was, the NHL rule, which I believe was uplifted. I don't honestly know.
It's not uplifted in Canada yet. It's supposed to be. From what I'm hearing, with baseball, they said it looks like it could be done the end of September because they're concerned with the Blue Jays making the playoffs. That some players that may not have been vaccinated cannot come up, and I don't think they want to penalize those teams. So I think MLB is working on a deal with the government to rescind the rule at the end of the month. So if that's the case, there shouldn't be an issue. Again, it could be a team issue, and there are obviously in some cases, in some teams and sports, there is that issue. But
right,
I don't see why anymore. I don't think there's a reason why.
Yeah. And in all honesty, David, I haven't asked yet. I don't know.
If I don't have to wear a mask on the subway, then I think I think Mr. Wild should be able to attend camp. My honest opinion.
So we'll see what happens. But let's get into Islander news real quick, and because we're going to get into water cooler talk. We're going to answer all your questions, I promise. Real quick, Chara retires.
Class.
making now there is no active player losing to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs. There's not an active player who has ever lost to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs. Another reason why the Toronto Maple Leafs, this is it, boys. Get it done.
Make sure this video goes up to Canada, please.
But give me your thoughts on Chara.
What can you say? I mean, I think if he had the opportunity, he'd thank every single person that's ever had anything to do with his career over his 26 years.
I agree.
I mean, we all knew he was a class guy, and I was so upset when people were complaining about him and all this stuff because, truthfully, I think he did more for this team in 1 year than guys have done for 10 years.
Yep.
Because what he's turned, number one, for what he's turned Noah into. Every time Noah gets a point, every time Noah makes a great play and comes back on defense and does something smart, every time he does that, I want everybody that's listening on here to say thank you, Zdeno.
Yeah.
Because he molded that kid. We already knew how good he was going to be, but he molded him into something even better.
And I will always have a soft spot now for the Boston Bruins, that Stanley Cup team, because you also have Chara, Seidenberg, and Johnny Boychuk all leaving some kind of imprint on Noah Dobson. You don't get any better than that.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, yeah, right. It was Boychuk and Green when it started, and Chara finished it. But
yep.
He's always been that person to help anybody.
Yep.
And it showed in this play. He did, and the thing that impressed me even more at the age of 44 is that he defended his players. He protected his players, his teammates. Yep. And that, somebody, most guys when they're on their last legs are not going to do things like that. But Zdeno, it didn't matter. It didn't matter whether they were in first or last, whether they were winning 9-0 or losing 9-0. He protected anything happened to one of his guys. He came up and stood up for him. And that is contagious. You saw it on other guys, guys like Wallstrom, when sometimes he stepped up. That's coming from Big Z, from Big Z, putting his face up in front of people and getting involved. That rubbed off on a lot of guys.
Yep.
And I think that's going to stay with a lot of guys. So, 1 year made, it didn't look that way on the score sheet.
Right.
But, that's an intangible, that's going to be hard to replace.
Yep.
But, I'm so happy he got to play, his last year here. I know Kimmy, if she's listening, is lamenting over that for sure.
Yep.
That was her buddy. But, I think he left a mark and it'll continue. And like I said, every time Noah Dobson does something, whether you screamed at him and hated him or not, you're going to say, thank you, Zdeno, because he's responsible for big responsibility for helping Noah to become the player that he is now.
Absolutely. The other Islander news at the moment, Corey Schneider returns, Parker Wotherspoon returns. For me, that's just depth. I'm a little surprised Schneider came back. I'm hoping Jakob Skarek plays more games than Corey Schneider this year. I need to see that happen. Parker Wotherspoon, for me, he's a good depth defenseman. Honestly, we were talking about the sixth defenseman. Who do you see challenging for the sixth defenseman on the Islanders? Parker, in my opinion, if he could move the puck up a little bit better, he would be the sixth defenseman right now. I'm not lying. He would be the sixth defenseman. He is Adam Pelech in every sense, except for the accelerating and except for, the fact that he just can't move the puck up as well. Time may have passed, but I really do like the fact that he's back another year. And if injuries arise, I don't have a problem with him being the number 6 defenseman at all. Real quick, give me your thoughts on Corey Schneider.
Same thing. A devoted Lou guy. I mean, I don't think, was any other situation he wouldn't be playing. Again, another presence in the locker room from people I've talked to in Connecticut. Right. Schneider's big in the room, not just for Skarrek's case, but for the entire team. And
Okay.
again, those types of intangibles, you can't
Right.
put a price on it. You can't put a tag on it. So, as you said, I hope Scarrick, and he should get more of the playing time than Corey will. But I
Right.
again, I'm happy with the move.
Okay. Now, for those of you wondering who Nikita
Shashnik.
Soshnikov is, basically he's a Russian version of Michael Grabner.
Mm-hmm.
Speedy winger, lethal
Yes.
shot when he wants to use it. Um, he
Had a
can
cup
play
of
that
coffee
gritty
with a
game.
couple of teams.
He's had a couple. He is a former Lou guy up in Toronto. Did not be. He wasn't out of position, guys. He had a problem staying injured. He did have a concussion, but for me, I think everyone. I don't think everyone's penciled in yet. But if you're Lane Lambert and you need someone with a little more speed, Shashnikov makes more sense than someone, maybe Ross Johnson. Maybe you tell him to give Oliver Wallstrom a good run for his money because a lot of these signings, especially on the defense, we're going to get that into a minute. Who has the heart to make this team? Who's got that drive? Who's got that determination? And I think this is going to be an excellent test. I don't think anything should be given to Robin Salo. I don't think anything should be given to Oliver Wallstrom. Nothing should be given to Kiefer Bellows. You guys know me by now. I'm usually harder on the prospects and the younger players than most any other fan or commentator or blogger or whatnot. If Sashnikov can come in with more speed and knows how to play the two-way game better than Wallstrom, this better be Wallstrom's wake-up call. And I agree. You got to earn the spot. So I like the healthy competition. In the end, do I think Shashnikov gets, sent down? Yes. But now answering Cutler's question here, do we see Holmstrom up with the big club at some point this season? Yes. I think you can if injuries arrive. I think Shashnikov will be the first one to be called up if he's still, if he's not claimed. But if you're looking for like a middle six and Shashnikov is not available, you're looking at Holmstrom because it's time. It's his time to show up. And I'm going to be doing a piece about Bridgeport in another week or so. And the theme for Bridgeport season is who is my next Trent Hunter? So those of you go on ilestalk.com in another week. I'll have that posted. For those of you who are old enough, you will understand where I'm going with that. So do I think we'll see Simon Holmstrom with the big club this year? Maybe at some point.
Speaking of the sixth, I know you were talking
Yes.
about it, and of course you talked about Aho and Salo. You also
Chalowski.
have Dennis Chalowski in the mix too. What are your thoughts on him? What have you heard about
I
him? Because I
I
know
have
I think he's getting some consideration, right?
he is getting consideration. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is from a former Detroit scout who was around when they drafted Chalowski. And this was his thoughts on Chalowski just a couple of days ago. Good skill set, some offensive ability, weak defender, and lacks passion and compete. Now, with his third team in 4 years, sometimes they grow up and figure it out before it's too late. Sometimes they don't. A weak expansion team gave up on him in 1 year. That says a lot. We had 3 years of everyone telling him the same thing in Detroit. Either you have it in you or you don't. You can't teach someone to have heart, was our take. So we left him exposed in the expansion draft.
Hmm.
Folks, this is exactly what Chalowski is. This is what Salo is. This is Aho. Where's the heart? Who wants it more?
Hutton too.
And
You
I'm
got
going
to
to
add
say
in the
this
equation.
now. Shoshnikov and Wallstrom should be battling it out. Same thing with Bellows. Who wants it? Who has the heart to actually make this team?
And don't
This
forget
is what
Grant
I
Hutton
look
in there
for.
too.
Grant Hutton as well. If Grant Hutton has one hell of a camp, Sebastian Aho can be waived. That's fine. No problem with that.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Nothing should be earned. Yeah, I agree. Got to get that spot. So we're going to find out in camp. We'll
Mr.
see.
Fire Helmet's got a lot of comments tonight.
I love it. Love it. About time you all showed up. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. Well, you know what? I like him for his offensive ability. No offense, when Aho scores a point somewhere, the Islanders didn't lose. That goes back to what we were saying before. When the Islanders defense scored 2 points or more, they were basically unbeatable. They were like 27, 8, and 5, something like that. And I didn't even bring it up. I've looked at those numbers far too many times now. When the Islanders defense scores 2 points or more, forget it. You're not beating them. So let's see what happens now. So any other questions, comments, concerns, water cooler talk? It's been a little bit of both here with everything going on. Any other questions?
Excuse me.
Give me Salo and Hutton for 6 and 7. I still want to see what Chalowski wants to do. I think if anybody's NHL ready, it's Chalowski. Because you got to remember now, Salo is still waiver exempt. You can send him down. And if you're not going to give Robin Salo meaningful minutes, you want to give him as much as possible down in Bridgeport. Chalowski, if he doesn't cut it here, this is his career. He's going to be a career AHLer. Salo can go back to Europe if for some reason it never works out for him. There will always be a future for Salo. Chalowski, this is it. Give me someone who is desperate to make this team. Show me the heart that you really want to play in the NHL and that you want to play for the Islanders. Hutton, number 7, I have no problem with. I don't. Whoever that puck-moving defenseman is at number 6.
Okay. No, I thought he played well. He didn't embarrass himself up here.
No.
No, he did. He did okay.
Yeah.
Now it's just having that opportunity under his belt gives him a little confidence. And like I said, these next, to me, camp means more for these guys the first 3 or 4 days. If you're fighting for a job, day 1, 2, and 3, you better be kicking ass. You better be on not only at 100% of the game, you better be on 120% of your game.
Yeah.
Hey, Snoop. So if you're not up at that level at that point, then it's over, Johnny.
Yeah. So, any other questions, comments, concerns? We ran 100, right? An hour and 20 minutes,
18
almost.
minutes, yeah, not bad.
Great show, guys. Thanks for all the comments. You guys have been wonderful. The Islanders' offense is going to improve, and it may just be the fact that we're coming to a point where you guys have heard me talk about this. The core of Anders Lee, Brock Nelson, and Adam Pelech. At some point, they're going to get moved up to that twilight core that currently has Cizikas, Bailey, and Mayfield. Those 3 at some point won't be here. You're going to have Nelson, Lee, Pelech. They're all going to move up. And now I think it's time to see Beauvillier, Barzal, Pollock, have them come up, take another step. You're going to see the emergence of Noah Dobson. This is something that I have always enjoyed. It's the younger players coming in, stepping into roles that they are ready for and blossoming. We may agree to disagree on Oliver Wahlstrom. We may agree to disagree on Kiefer Bellows.
I don't.
We may agree to disagree on Robin Salo. But we're all close. They're all almost ready. And it could take someone like Lane Lambert to bridge that gap. So that way there's no more question marks. We know who these players are. So we'll see what happens. I still think the Islanders can score 250 goals this year with the team that they currently have. But for me, if their defense is solid, they're making the playoffs. And as far as the rest of the Eastern goes, in terms of the previews, there's a lot of question marks with these other teams after number 6. So hopefully you guys can go along with that. Coming up next week, I'm going to briefly cover the Western Conference because really the Islanders don't have to worry about the Western Conference till the Stanley Cup playoffs. Anything goes there. If anything happens with the Islander news, we'll cover that as well. Hopefully we can talk about the Matthew Barzal signing his extension next week. That would be awesome. And, maybe we'll have a guest on next week. I'll try to get Andrew Gross or Kevin Kurz on next week. And we'll talk about the training camp and we'll go from there. So, Gary, where can they find you?
At Owlsmet63. Again, I don't tweet as often, but now that we're doing the show just about every week, which is great, we will be having these great talks. And hopefully, if you want me to add a little thing into Andrew, since I saw him last week at the Met outing, he was there.
Okay.
So I'll talk to Andrew and see if we can get him to come on with us.
Beautiful. And if we do, folks, we'll let you know. We'll make that happen. And because I do want to get a few more guests on. I've actually been asked if they wanted to come on the show as well. So it's going to be a fun time this year at Isles Talk. So join us next week. We'll find out a specific date, and we'll talk Islanders next week. So thank you guys for coming on. Let's go Islanders. And again, for those of you who want to talk hockey with me at any time, I'm on Twitter at P_Kreischer. Find me on Isles Talk on Facebook, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe on the YouTube channel for Isles Talk. So once again, boys and girls, we'll see you next week. Let's go Islanders, and enjoy training camp. Hockey's here.
Good night.